Welcome to the English Lab's sample paragraph for the film High Ground. For those of you studying this excellent Australian film, please take a look at our other videos that we have. We're updating more and more as we go along. And also take a look at our study guide, of which this paragraph is included, along with another sample paragraph and a range of other things that can help you out with your study of this great text. My name is Ben Taylor. This is a paragraph that has been written in response to a question that we wrote about this film. The idea of today is that you take a look through how this comes together, the language that allows this paragraph to work. Feel free to take the sentence starters, the sentence structures, the terms, the phrases, anything that you can from this paragraph, just to broaden your understanding of the many ways that a paragraph can be put together. Because one of the myths that we see when we speak to students across Victoria is that they think that there is, sometimes this one formula or this set of rules that a paragraph or an essay must be written to. Now, there's always obviously a general structure, but there is more than one way to go about writing a paragraph. So if we take a look here at what we're looking at today, we can see the question up the top. So the question has been put to us. The film exposes loyalty as a character trait that is more of a flaw than it is a virtue. To what extent do you agree? Now, if you look back through previous exams, even if they were questions in Section A that weren't focused on high ground, you'll notice that this type of structure is actually quite common. It's putting an idea to you, and then it's asking to what extent do you agree. Now, the fact that this says that it exposes loyalty changes what this question's about. And then, of course, this idea that it's more of a flaw of a character trait than it is a virtue. So our response has to come, back in a way where we're purposefully providing some sort of response to what that question is putting to us. Let's see how this paragraph goes about it. Loyalty is presented as something that is expected of all characters, determined by their race and history and allegiance to their people. Whilst there are moments in which the connection to family and tradition is seen as honourable, Johnson also examines how loyalty can blind characters to justice and compassion for other human beings. Now, I would say that by the end of these opening two sentences, a very clear idea of what this paragraph is going to be about has been established. We have a very clear understanding of what this paragraph is going to go on and say, and we can see that it is a direct response to what the question was putting to us. If we really break it down and take a look at this first sentence, I'd be quite critical of it in saying that it really doesn't say much at all. This opening of this paragraph is really saved by what comes after this. This first sentence basically just says that every character, has to deal with and is expected to show some form of loyalty. It's a very, very general statement. And if it just stopped there, we'd probably have a bit of an issue with this being a pretty, run-of-the-mill, pretty ordinary, probably quite a low-scoring paragraph. But when we get into this next sentence, I want you to notice how this starts with the word whilst. Because if it's talking about the fact, if the question is put to us that loyalty is more of a flaw than it is a virtue, when we start this sentence with whilst, we're showing that we're open to different ways of looking at this. Whilst there are moments in which the connection and family and tradition is seen as honourable, Johnson also examines. So we've got that way of responding to the question, because the question is saying it's more of a flaw than it is a virtue, and this response is showing that, okay, yes, sometimes it can be a virtue. We're not saying that it's not and it never will be or anything like that, but this is where we come down with the response. And that Johnson also examines how loyalty can blind characters to justice and compassion for other human beings. So sometimes just the language that we use or that we choose to start our sentences with can have great impacts on showing how we're responding to the question. If you're looking at a question that has a similar type of setup, starting a sentence early on with the word whilst is that way of saying, whilst I can acknowledge that I understand the question is about this, ultimately what I'm going to come down and say is this. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's you showing that you can interpret it in a range of ways, but still come home with some sense of purpose in what you're writing about. Following the massacre, Eddie's chilling statement that they're dead and what matters is that we act as a unit exemplifies the manner in which loyalty can so easily create enemies of those of differing cultural backgrounds. The belief that a shared history of fighting and war and a shared purpose in settling the land binds the men together is shown as powerful, as Travis is viewed as a traitor for his rejection of his former colleagues' ways. So, like most paragraphs, here in the meat of it, we're really, putting forward that evidence. And, there's some quotes, they've been embedded. It's maybe a little bit heavy-handed in that it outlines, a couple of things that are said. There's, plenty of evidence there. But it's all there to set us up for, okay, what are we going to say about this evidence? What analysis are we going to bring through? So let's take a look at how it does this. Such as Eddie and Moran's devotion to their cause, as both policemen and white Australians looking to establish themselves as a colony, that they are oblivious and ignorant to the pain and suffering they cause. And so this sentence, when we take a look at it on its own, is really getting to the heart of the question, that Eddie and Moran have a devotion to their cause, i.e., a sense of loyalty, as policemen and white Australians, that they are oblivious and ignorant to the pain and suffering they cause. So therefore, this loyalty is a flaw more than it is a virtue. That's why it's so important that we've got a range of synonyms to be able to use, like ignorance and also devotion, so that we're not just repeating loyalty and flaw and virtue all over, the place and time after time. But it's a really clear way of saying, yes, I'm responding to what this question is asking. Travis leaving does not lead to self-reflection from the others. It rather sees them label him and having no sense of duty, no sense of loyalty. Thus, when one has established loyalty, be it to another person, to an ideal, or to the king of an empire, they are not just emboldened in those views, but come to see anything outside of those views as irrelevant. And so you can see here that, okay, we've put down some evidence, we've talked about Travis leaving, we've talked about how people react to that, and now it's getting to the heart of, okay, what do we learn through this and what do we understand through this? And that what we come to see through this film is that, as people, show their loyalty to one thing, it often leads to them excluding everything outside of that world. The dichotomous environment that this creates, now that's a nice little fancy way of putting it. Dichotomous just meaning that there are two distinct things. If we have a dichotomy, it means that there are two clear things, places, people, whatever it might be. A dichotomy is where, we have very clearly split into two. So a dichotomous environment that this creates is criticised by Johnson. Now, before we continue with this sentence, I'd be saying that, okay, we've put forward some evidence here. We've now talked about what we can interpret and understand through that evidence. And now we're really getting to a statement about the director of this film, Stephen Johnson, and what he's really saying. And so when it says that it's criticised by Johnson, that's when we're getting to some really specific analysis. And that's what we need to be looking to do quite a bit. As he exhibits the cycle of violence and revenge that occurs when groups view themselves as enemies of each other. Eddie's statement to Claire that one can't share a country speaks to the division caused by blind loyalty. Ultimately, even though it is expected of individuals within a culture, loyalty is exhibited as a weakness of character when it comes at the expense of others and causes irrevocable harm. And so you can see the manner in which this paragraph has moved from its strong opening, its acknowledgement of what the question is. It's then grappled with the question, in terms of looking at the different evidence and what Johnson is saying through that evidence. And then look at how it finishes off with that word ultimately as a fantastic term to use either in your conclusions or at the end of your introductions or at the end of your body paragraphs. I wouldn't use it in all 5 of those things because it's going to get repetitive. But a fantastic word to have up your sleeve, and others like it because it's your way of saying, okay, I'm saying all of these things across my paragraph, but ultimately I'm coming down here at this point. And when you use language like that, it shows the right attitude towards essay writing, which is, okay, I'm going to explore a few things and I'm going to bring up a few things, but I'm going to arrive at a point, both in my paragraphs and in my essay throughout. If you have any questions about anything that I've mentioned today, please put them down there in the comments. I'd be more than happy to help out. We have other high ground videos here on YouTube. As I mentioned before, we also have a study guide available on our website. Please feel free to go and take a look at that and download it if you wish. But until we see you next time, all the best with your study and good luck.